Elena Vasquez pushed her cleaning cart down the long, empty hallway of the Hartwell Conservatory of Music. The wheels made a soft sound on the shiny wooden floor. It was almost 9 o'clock at night, and all the students and teachers had gone home. This was Elena's favorite time. The building was quiet, and she could work in peace. She stopped outside the big concert hall and looked through the glass doors. Inside, there were hundreds of red velvet seats facing a beautiful stage. A grand piano sat in the center, waiting for someone to play it. During the day, talented young musicians filled this room with beautiful sounds, but at night it belonged to Elena and her mop. Elena was 34 years old. She had dark brown hair that she always tied back in a simple ponytail. Her hands were rough from years of hard work. She wore the same blue uniform every day, with the name of the cleaning company printed on the back. To the students and professors who walked past her, she was invisible. They never looked at her face. They never wondered about her life. She was just the cleaning lady. But Elena had a secret she had buried deep inside her heart for many, many years. She came from a family of singers. Her grandmother, Rosa, had been famous in Mexico. Rosa had a voice so beautiful that people said the angels stopped to listen when she sang. She performed in grand theaters and even sang for presidents. Elena's mother had also been a singer, though not as famous as Rosa. Music was in their blood, passed down from mother to daughter like a precious gift. When Elena was a little girl in Mexico, her grandmother would sit with her every evening. Rosa would teach her old songs, folk melodies that had been sung for hundreds of years. Elena learned to breathe properly, to hold notes, to let the music flow from her heart. Her grandmother said she had a special gift. She said Elena's voice was even more beautiful than her own. "One day, you will sing for the whole world," Rosa would tell her. "One day, everyone will know your name." Elena believed her. She dreamed of standing on a big stage, wearing a beautiful dress, with thousands of people listening to her sing. She practiced every day. She sang while she helped her mother cook. She sang while she walked to school. She sang until her voice became strong and clear. But life had other plans. When Elena was 15, everything changed. Her father lost his job. The family had no money for food or rent. They made the difficult decision to leave Mexico and go to America, hoping for a better life. They crossed the border with nothing but the clothes on their backs and hearts full of hope. America was not what they expected. Elena's parents worked long hours in factories for very little money. They lived in a small, crowded apartment with 3 other families. There was no time for singing. There was no money for music lessons. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Elena had to leave school and find work. At 16, she started cleaning houses. At 18, she got a job with a cleaning company. She worked at night, cleaning offices, schools, and stores. The work was hard, and her body was always tired, but she never complained. She sent money to her parents. She did what she had to do. Her grandmother Rosa died when Elena was 20. Elena could not afford to go back to Mexico for the funeral. She cried alone in her tiny room, remembering all the songs Rosa had taught her. That night, she tried to sing one of those old melodies, but her voice came out cracked and broken. She had not sung in years. The gift her grandmother had given her was fading away. Elena decided to let it go. Singing was a dream for a different life, a life she would never have. She locked the music away in a small box inside her heart and threw away the key. Years passed. Elena got married to a kind man named Carlos. They had a daughter, Sofia, who was now 12 years old. Carlos worked as a construction worker during the day. Elena worked as a cleaner at night. They rarely saw each other, but they made it work. They were a good family, even if life was hard. Then, 5 years ago, Elena got the job at the Hartwell Conservatory. At first, she did not want to take it. The idea of being surrounded by music every night was painful. It reminded her of everything she had lost. But the pay was better than her other jobs, and Sofia needed new shoes for school. Elena said yes. The first few months were difficult. Every night, she heard echoes of piano music and violin songs coming from practice rooms. She saw young students laughing and talking about their dreams of becoming famous musicians. They had everything she never had: money, opportunity, time. Elena tried not to feel jealous. She reminded herself that she was lucky to have a job at all. Slowly, she got used to it. She learned to block out the music. She focused on her work, moving from room to room, cleaning and polishing and sweeping. She became invisible, a ghost moving through the building after everyone else had left. But sometimes, when she was alone in the concert hall, something strange happened. The music inside her would wake up. It would push against the walls she had built around it. Elena would feel an ache in her chest, a longing she could not explain. She would look at the empty stage and imagine herself standing there, singing the way her grandmother had taught her. Then she would shake her head and push those feelings away. That dream was not for her. It had never been for her. Tonight was like every other night. Elena finished cleaning the hallway and pushed her cart toward the piano room. She checked her watch. She had 3 more hours of work before she could go home. 3 more hours of silence and solitude. She opened the door to the piano room and turned on the lights. The room was small but beautiful. There was a black grand piano in the center, surrounded by chairs and music stands. Sheets of music were scattered on a table. Someone had left a coffee cup on the windowsill. Alina sighed and picked it up. As she wiped down the piano, she noticed a piece of sheet music on the stand. It was a song she recognized from her childhood, a Mexican folk song her grandmother used to sing. Alina stared at it for a long moment. Her heart began to beat faster. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the paper. And then, for the first time in 15 years, Alina began to hum. The melody came back to her like an old friend. It filled the empty room with warmth and sadness and beauty. Alina closed her eyes and let the music carry her back to her grandmother's kitchen, to the smell of fresh bread and the sound of Rosa's laughter. She did not know that someone was watching her from the doorway. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. Professor Margaret Chen was 72 years old. She had white hair that she wore in an elegant bun, and she always dressed in expensive clothes. For 40 years, she had been the most respected voice teacher at the Hartwell Conservatory. She had trained some of the most famous opera singers in the world. People called her a genius. They said she could hear things in a voice that no one else could hear. That night, Margaret had stayed late to finish some paperwork. She was tired and ready to go home. But as she walked toward the exit, she realized she had left her reading glasses in the piano room. She turned around and walked back through the quiet building. The halls were dark except for a few lights. Margaret's shoes clicked on the wooden floor. She was thinking about her warm bed and a cup of tea. She was not thinking about music. After 40 years, music was just her job. She rarely felt surprised by anything anymore. Then she heard it, a voice, soft and low, floating through the air like a whisper. Margaret stopped walking. She stood very still and listened. The voice was humming a melody, something old and beautiful. It sounded like a folk song from somewhere far away. Margaret followed the sound. It led her to the piano room. The door was open, and light was spilling into the hallway. She stepped closer and looked inside. She saw the cleaning lady, the woman with the blue uniform and the mop. She was standing by the piano, her eyes closed, her hand resting on the sheets of music, and she was singing. No, not singing. Not yet. She was humming the melody, feeling her way through it. But even the humming was extraordinary. The sound was pure and rich, like honey mixed with gold. There was a sadness in it, a deep emotion that made Margaret's heart ache. Margaret had heard thousands of voices in her life. She had trained voices that sold out concert halls. But this voice was different. This voice was raw and untrained. Yes, but it had something that could not be taught. It had soul. The cleaning lady began to sing the words. Her voice was soft at first, almost afraid. But as she continued, it grew stronger. The song was in Spanish, and Margaret did not understand the words. But she understood the feeling. She understood the longing and the love and the loss. Margaret leaned against the doorframe. She forgot about her glasses. She forgot about going home. She just listened, her eyes filling with tears. The song came to an end. The last note hung in the air for a moment, then faded into silence. The cleaning lady opened her eyes and sighed. She looked peaceful, like she had just returned from a beautiful dream. Then she turned and saw Margaret standing in the doorway. The cleaning lady gasped. Her face turned red with embarrassment. She grabbed her mop and started apologizing. "I am so sorry," she said quickly. "I did not know anyone was here. I should not have been singing. Please do not report me. I need this job. I promise it will not happen again." She was speaking so fast that her words ran together. Her hands were shaking. She looked terrified, like a child caught doing something wrong. Margaret held up her hand. "Stop," she said gently. "Please, stop." The cleaning lady stopped talking. She stood there, clutching her mop, waiting to be punished. Margaret walked into the room. She looked at the woman carefully for the first time. She saw the rough hands, the tired eyes, the simple uniform. She saw someone who worked hard and expected nothing in return. She saw someone who had been invisible for a very long time. "What is your name?" Margaret asked. "Alina," the woman said quietly. "Elena Vasquez." "Alina," Margaret repeated. "That was beautiful. That song you were singing. Where did you learn it?" Elena looked at the floor. "It is just an old song. My grandmother taught it to me when I was a child." "In Mexico, your grandmother must have been a wonderful singer." "She was," Elena said. There was pain in her voice. "She was famous in Mexico. She sang in big theaters. Everyone loved her." Margaret nodded slowly. "And did you study music?" Elena shook her head. "No, never. I wanted to, but..." She stopped and shrugged. "Life happened. I had to work. There was no time for music." "How long has it been since you sang?" Elena thought for a moment. 15 years, maybe more. I do not remember exactly." Margaret stared at her. 15 years. This woman had not sung in 15 years, and yet her voice was still this beautiful. It was almost impossible to believe. "Elena," Margaret said slowly, "do you know who I am?" "Yes," Elena said. "You are Professor Chen. You teach the advanced singing students. Everyone says you are the best." "I have been teaching voice for 40 years, Margaret said. "I have worked with hundreds of students. Some of them became very famous. I have heard every kind of voice you can imagine. Classical voices, jazz voices, pop voices. I have heard voices trained at the best schools in the world." Elena did not know what to say. She just stood there waiting. Margaret took a step closer. Her eyes were intense, almost fierce. In all those years, I have never heard anything like what I just heard. Your voice, Elena. It is extraordinary. It is rare. It is the kind of voice that comes along once in a generation. Elena's mouth fell open. She shook her head. No, you are being kind. I am just a cleaning lady. I do not know anything about music. Not real music. Not the kind of music they teach here. That is exactly what makes your voice so special, Margaret said. It has not been ruined by training. It has not been made into something ordinary. It is pure. It is real. It is like finding a diamond in the middle of a field. Elena felt dizzy. She did not understand what was happening. Why was this famous professor talking to her like this? It had to be a joke or a mistake. I think you are confused, Elena said. I am nobody. I clean toilets and mop floors. That is who I am. Margaret smiled. It was a warm smile, full of kindness. That is what you do. It is not who you are. There is a difference. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. She pressed it into Elena's hand. I want you to think about something, Margaret said. The conservatory has a big charity concert in 3 weeks. One of the singers had to cancel. There is an empty spot in the program. I would like you to fill it. Elena almost dropped the card. Me sing at a concert? That is crazy. I cannot do that. Why not? Because I am not a singer. I told you, I have not sung in 15 years. I do not know how to perform. I would make a fool of myself. Margaret shook her head. You would not. I would help you. I would teach you. 3 weeks is not a long time, but for someone with your natural talent, it might be enough. Elena's heart was pounding. Part of her wanted to run away. Another part wanted to cry. And somewhere deep inside, a tiny voice was whispering, maybe this is real. Maybe this is your chance. I cannot, she said again. But her voice was weaker now. Think about it, Margaret said. That is all I ask. Take a few days, think about what you really want, then call me. She patted Elena's shoulder gently and walked out of the room, leaving Elena standing alone with a business card in her hand and a storm of emotions in her heart. Elena could not sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her husband Carlos snore softly beside her. The business card sat on her nightstand, glowing white in the darkness. She kept looking at it, as if it might disappear if she turned away. Professor Margaret Chen, voice instructor, Hartwell Conservatory of Music. Below the name was a phone number, just 10 little numbers that could change everything, or nothing at all. Elena turned over and closed her eyes. This was silly. She was a cleaning lady. She was 34 years old, with a husband and a daughter, and bills to pay. She did not have time for crazy dreams. Tomorrow she would throw the card away and forget this ever happened. But when she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of her grandmother. Rosa was standing on a beautiful stage, wearing a red dress that sparkled under the lights. She was singing, and the whole world was listening. Then she turned and looked at Elena, and her eyes were sad. Why did you give up? Rosa asked. I gave you my voice. Why did you throw it away? Elena woke up with tears on her cheeks. The next day she went about her normal routine. She made breakfast for Sophia before school. She cleaned the house. She took a nap before her night shift. But the whole time, she was thinking about the card, about Professor Chen, about what she had said. Your voice is extraordinary. It is rare. It is the kind of voice that comes along once in a generation. Could it be true? Was it possible that after all these years, after all her suffering, she still had something special inside her? Or was the professor just being nice to the poor cleaning lady? That night, Elena went to work as usual. She pushed her cart through the halls of the conservatory, cleaning rooms one by one. She avoided the piano room. She was afraid to go back there, afraid of what she might feel. But near the end of her shift, she found herself standing in front of the door. Her feet had carried her there without her permission. She stood there for a long moment, her hand on the handle. Then she heard footsteps behind her. I thought I might find you here. Elena turned around. Professor Chen was walking toward her, carrying a cup of tea. Do you always work this late? Elena asked. No, Margaret said with a small smile. But I had a feeling you might need someone to talk to. They went into the piano room together. Margaret sat down on a chair by the window. Elena stood awkwardly near the door, not sure what to do. Sit down, Margaret said gently. Please. Elena sat on the edge of a chair. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. I know this is strange for you, Margaret said. A stranger tells you that you have an amazing voice, and suddenly your whole life feels different. It is scary. I understand. Elena nodded. I have not stopped thinking about it, about what you said. Part of me thinks you are crazy, but another part of me. She stopped, unable to finish. Another part of you hopes it is true, Margaret said. Yes, Elena whispered, and that scares me the most. Margaret took a sip of her tea. Tell me about your life, Elena. Tell me about your family, about Mexico, about how you came here. I want to understand. So Elena told her. She told her about her grandmother Rosa and the songs they used to sing together. She told her about her mother, who had a beautiful voice but never got the chance to use it. She told her about her father losing his job and the family leaving Mexico with nothing. She told her about working since she was 16, about the long hours and the tired muscles and the feeling of being invisible. She told her about getting married, having Sophia and trying to build a good life even when everything was hard. And she told her about the night her grandmother died, about trying to sing and failing, about locking the music away inside her and promising herself she would never open that door again by the time she finished. There were tears running down her face. Margaret reached over and took her hand. "You have had a difficult life," Margaret said softly. "You have worked so hard and sacrificed so much. But Alina, you have also been running away. You have been running away from your gift because you are afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of wanting something you think you cannot have. Afraid of dreaming again. Afraid of failing." Alina wiped her eyes. "What if I try and I am terrible? What if I get on that stage and everyone laughs at me? I would rather stay invisible than be humiliated." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Listen to me carefully. I have taught hundreds of students. I know what talent looks like. And you, Alina Vasquez, have more natural talent than anyone I have ever met. I am not saying this to be kind. I am saying this because it is true." Alina shook her head. "But I have no training. I do not know how to read music properly. I do not know the techniques. The people who come to that concert are expecting professionals, not cleaning ladies." 3 weeks is enough time to learn one song," Margaret said. "One simple, beautiful song. I will teach you everything you need to know. You will practice every night after your shift. By the time of the concert you will be ready." "But why?" Alina asked. "Why do you care so much? You do not even know me." Margaret was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the dark sky. 50 years ago," she said slowly, "I was a young girl in China. My family was very poor. I loved to sing, but there was no money for lessons. One day a music teacher heard me singing in the market. She offered to teach me for free. She changed my life. Without her I would never have become who I am today." She turned back to Alina. "I have been waiting my whole career to do the same thing for someone else. To find a voice like mine was found. To give someone the chance I was given. And now, finally, I have found you." Alina felt something shift inside her chest. The wall around her heart, the one she had built so carefully over 15 years, was starting to crack. "I do not know if I can do this," she said. "You do not have to know," Margaret replied. "You just have to try." Alina closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother standing on that stage in her dream. She thought about Sophia, her beautiful daughter, who had never heard her mother sing. She thought about all the years she had spent being invisible, being nobody, being afraid, and suddenly, she was tired of being afraid. "Okay," she said. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes were clear. "Okay, I will try. But if I am terrible, if I fail, you have to promise me you will tell me the truth." Margaret smiled. It was the biggest smile Alina had ever seen. "I promise," she said, "but you will not fail. I know it. I can feel it." They shook hands, and in that moment Alina felt something she had not felt in 15 years. She felt hope. The next morning Alina woke up feeling like she had dreamed the whole thing. She lay in bed, replaying the conversation with Professor Chen in her mind. Had she really agreed to sing at a concert, in front of hundreds of people? It seemed impossible. It seemed insane. She got up and found Carlos in the kitchen making coffee. He was a big man with kind eyes and rough hands. He worked hard every day, building houses and offices around the city. When he saw Alina, he smiled and kissed her forehead. "You came home late last night," he said. "Everything okay at work?" Alina hesitated. She had not told Carlos about meeting Professor Chen. She was not sure how to explain it. He knew about her grandmother and her musical family, but they never talked about it. It was part of her past, not her present. "Everything is fine," she said. "Just extra cleaning to do." She felt bad for lying, but she was not ready to share the truth yet. What if she changed her mind? What if she decided not to do it? It was better to keep it secret for now. Sophia came running into the kitchen, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders. She was 12 years old, with her father's smile and her mother's dark eyes. She grabbed a piece of toast and gave Alina a quick hug. "Bye, Mom. I will be late today. Soccer practice. Be careful," Alina called after her. "I love you." The door slammed, and then it was quiet. Carlos finished his coffee and left for work too. Alina was alone with her thoughts. She spent the morning cleaning the house, but her mind was somewhere else. She kept thinking about the concert, about standing on a stage with hundreds of eyes watching her, about opening her mouth and singing in front of strangers. The thought made her stomach hurt by afternoon. She had convinced herself that she could not do it. It was too crazy. She was not a performer. She was a cleaning lady who happened to have a nice voice. There was a big difference between singing alone in an empty room and singing in front of an audience. She decided to call Professor Chen and tell her she had changed her mind. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on the business card. Her heart was pounding as she waited for someone to answer. "Hello." It was Margaret's voice, warm and calm. "Professor Chen, this is Alina Vasquez. Alina, I am so happy you called. I was just thinking about you. I have been choosing songs for your performance. I found the perfect one. It is an Italian aria called O mio babbino caro. It is beautiful and emotional, and I think it will suit your voice perfectly." Alina opened her mouth to say she could not do it, but before she could speak, Margaret kept talking. "I know you are scared. That is completely normal. Everyone feels scared before their first performance. But fear is not a reason to give up. Fear is a sign that you are doing something important, something that matters to you. But Professor Chen, Margaret, please call me Margaret. Margaret, Elena said slowly, I have been thinking all day, and I am not sure I can do this. I do not have the right clothes. I do not have experience. I do not even know how to walk on a stage properly. What if I trip? What if I forget the words? What if my voice breaks in the middle of the song? Margaret laughed softly. Elena, do you know how many famous singers have tripped on stage? Do you know how many have forgotten words? It happens all the time. The difference between a good performer and a great performer is not that they never make mistakes. It is that they keep going anyway. Elena sat down on her couch. Her legs felt weak. I am serious, Margaret. I am nobody. Those people at the concert, they will be doctors and lawyers and rich business people. They will expect perfection, and I am just a woman who cleans their offices. That, Margaret said firmly, is exactly why you have to do this. Because you are nobody. Because no one expects anything from you. Elena, when you walk onto that stage, you will already have beaten the odds. You will already have won. Everything after that is just a gift. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She could feel her heart fighting with her brain. Her heart wanted to say yes. Her brain wanted to say no. What about the clothes? She finally asked. I do not have a dress for a concert. I cannot afford to buy one. I will take care of that, Margaret said. I have friends who can lend you something beautiful. You do not need to worry about clothes or shoes or anything else. Just focus on the music. I will handle everything else. And the practicing. I work until midnight every night. When will I have time to learn the song? We will practice after your shift. Every night for 3 weeks. 1 hour each night. By the end, you will know that song better than you know your own name. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother again. She thought about all the dreams she had buried so long ago. She thought about Sophia, who deserved to see her mother be brave. This is crazy, she said. Yes, Margaret agreed. It is completely crazy. But sometimes crazy things are the best things. Elena took a deep breath. Then another. She could feel something changing inside her. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Something that felt like excitement. Something that felt like possibility. Okay, she said quietly. I will do it. But I want you to know that I think this is the craziest thing I have ever done in my life. Margaret laughed again, and this time Elena found herself smiling too. Crazy is good, Margaret said. Crazy means you are alive. Now, here is what we are going to do. Tonight, after your shift, meet me in the concert hall. We will start with breathing exercises. I want to hear your full voice. Not just the little bit you showed me the other night, my full voice. Yes, the voice you are hiding from the world. The voice your grandmother gave you. Tonight, we are going to find it together. After they hung up, Elena sat on the couch for a long time. She stared at the phone in her hand like it was a magic object that had just changed her life. In a way it was. She had 3 weeks. 3 weeks to learn a song she had never heard. 3 weeks to become a performer. 3 weeks to stop being invisible and become someone who mattered. It was impossible. It was ridiculous. It was terrifying. And yet, for the first time in 15 years, Elena felt alive. That night she went to work with butterflies in her stomach. She cleaned the hallways and the offices and the practice rooms, but her mind was on the concert hall, on Margaret waiting for her, on the song she was about to learn. When her shift ended at midnight, she did not go home. Instead, she walked to the concert hall, pushed open the heavy doors, and stepped inside. Margaret was there, sitting at the piano. She looked up and smiled. Are you ready? She asked. Elena's heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. Her throat felt dry. No, she said honestly. I am not ready at all. Margaret nodded. Good. That means you are taking this seriously. Now come here and stand next to the piano. We have a lot of work to do. Elena walked across the empty stage, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She stopped beside the piano and looked out at the hundreds of empty seats. In 3 weeks, those seats would be filled with people, and she would be standing here, singing. The thought was terrifying, but it was also wonderful. Let us begin, Margaret said, and she began to play. The first night of practice was a disaster. Elena stood beside the piano, trying to follow Margaret's instructions, but everything felt wrong. Her breathing was too shallow, her posture was too stiff, her voice came out thin and shaky, nothing like the beautiful sound Margaret had heard before. Relax your shoulders, Margaret said. You are holding too much tension. Music needs to flow through your body like water. Right now, you are like a rock. Elena tried to relax, but she only got more nervous. She was aware of every little thing, the way she was standing, the position of her hands, the feeling of her tongue in her mouth. She had never thought about these things before. Singing had always been natural, like breathing. Now it felt like trying to walk while thinking about every single muscle in her legs. Let us try again, Margaret said patiently. Close your eyes. Forget about the technique. Forget about the performance. Just think about the song. Think about what it means. Elena closed her eyes. She tried to remember the feeling she had when she sang alone. The freedom, the peace. But it would not come. There was too much pressure, too much at stake. The first note came out flat. The second was too loud. By the third, Alina wanted to cry. "Stop," Margaret said. "That is enough for tonight. You are tired, and you are scared. We will try again tomorrow." Alina walked home in the cold night air, feeling defeated. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe she had been foolish to think she could do this. She was a cleaning lady, not a singer. What had she been thinking? But the next night she came back, and the night after that, and the night after that. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Margaret taught her how to breathe from her stomach, not her chest. She taught her how to stand with her weight balanced evenly on both feet. She taught her how to open her mouth wide enough to let the sound escape freely. She taught her how to feel the music in her body before letting it out through her voice. "The voice is just an instrument," Margaret explained, "like a piano or a violin. But the music comes from somewhere deeper. It comes from your heart. Your job is to get out of the way and let the music through." Alina practiced the same song over and over. "O mio babino caro." It was an Italian aria about a young woman begging her father to let her marry the man she loves. The words were sad and beautiful, full of longing and desperation. At first, Alina just tried to hit the right notes. But as the days passed, she began to understand the emotion behind the words. She thought about her own father, who had worked so hard to give his family a better life. She thought about Carlos, the man she had chosen to love. She thought about Sofia, her precious daughter, for whom she would do anything. The song stopped being just notes on a page. It became a story. Her story. 1 week into the practice, something magical happened. Alina was standing on the stage, eyes closed, singing the song for maybe the 100th time. But this time, she was not thinking about technique or posture or breathing. She was thinking about her grandmother, about the day Rosa had held her hands and said, "One day, you will sing for the whole world." Alina opened her mouth, and the most beautiful sound came out. It filled the concert hall like light filling a dark room. It rose to the ceiling and echoed off the walls. It was pure and clear and full of emotion that made Margaret stop playing the piano. When Alina opened her eyes, she saw that Margaret was crying. That Margaret said, her voice shaking, "That was it. That was the voice I heard. That was the voice that will change your life." Alina felt tears running down her own cheeks. She did not know where that sound had come from. It was like something had taken over her body, something bigger than herself. "How do I do it again?" she asked. Margaret smiled through her tears. "You do not try to do it. You just let it happen. You get out of your own way. You stop being Alina the cleaning lady and start being Alina the singer. They are the same person, but one of them has been sleeping for 15 years. Now she is waking up." The second week was hard. There were good nights and bad nights. Sometimes Alina's voice soared like a bird. Other times it stumbled and fell. Margaret pushed her hard, correcting every little mistake, demanding more and more. Higher, she would say, louder, softer, more emotion, less tension. Again. Some nights Alina cried from frustration. Her body was exhausted from cleaning all day and practicing all night. Her throat was sore from singing. Her heart was tired from feeling so much, but she kept coming back. She thought about her grandmother, who had practiced for hours every day to become great. She thought about Sofia, who worked hard at school and soccer and never complained. She thought about Carlos, who built houses with his bare hands even when it was freezing cold outside. Hard work was in her blood. She was not going to give up now. By the end of the second week, Alina could sing "O mio babino caro" from memory. She knew every note, every pause, every breath. She knew how to stand and how to move her hands. She knew how to project her voice to the back of the hall without shouting, but more importantly, she knew how to feel the song. She knew how to tell the story with her voice. She knew how to make people cry. "You are ready," Margaret said one night, after a particularly beautiful practice session. "You are not perfect. Nobody is ever perfect, but you are ready. When you walk onto that stage next week, you will be amazing." Alina was not so sure. The fear was still there, hiding in the corners of her mind. What if she forgot the words? What if her voice broke? What if everyone laughed at her? But underneath the fear there was something else, something that felt like strength, something that felt like power. For the first time in her life, Alina believed that she could do something incredible. She did not know what would happen at the concert. She did not know if she would succeed or fail. But she knew that she had found something precious, something she had lost long ago. She had found her voice, and no matter what happened next, no one could ever take that away from her again. On the last night of practice, Margaret gave Alina a small gift. It was a photograph in a silver frame. The photograph showed a young woman standing on a stage in China, wearing a beautiful dress and smiling at the camera. "This is me," Margaret said. 50 years ago, on the night of my first performance, I was terrified. I thought I was going to fail, but I did not fail. I sang, and everything changed." She pressed the frame into Alina's hands. "Keep this," she said. "Let it remind you that everyone starts somewhere. Even the greatest singers were once beginners. Even the most confident performers were once scared. The only difference between them and everyone else is that they did not let the fear stop them." Alina looked at the photograph, at the young Margaret, so full of hope and possibility. She felt a connection across time, across languages, across everything that separated them. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Margaret hugged her tight. Thank me after the concert. Thank me when you are standing on that stage and everyone is cheering for you. Thank me when your life changes forever. Alina went home that night with a photograph pressed against her heart. In 1 week, she would stand on that stage. In 1 week she would sing. She was ready, or at least, she hoped she was. The night before the concert, Alina could not eat. She sat at the dinner table with Carlos and Sofia, pushing food around her plate while her stomach twisted with fear. Tomorrow was the day. In less than 24 hours, she would be standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, singing a song in Italian. The thought made her want to run away and hide. "Mom, you have not touched your food," Sofia said, looking worried. "Are you feeling okay?" "I am fine," Alina said, "just not hungry." Carlos reached over and put his hand on hers. "You have been acting strange for weeks. Working late, coming home tired, not sleeping well. Is something wrong at work? Is someone bothering you?" Alina looked at her husband and daughter. Their faces were full of concern and love. She had been keeping this secret for 3 weeks now, and it was getting harder every day. Part of her wanted to tell them everything, but another part was afraid. What if they thought she was being foolish? What if they laughed at her dream? "I am fine," she said again. "Really?" After dinner, Alina went to her bedroom and closed the door. She took out the dress that Margaret had given her, a beautiful dark blue gown that sparkled like the night sky. She held it up to her body and looked in the mirror. For a moment, she saw a different woman looking back at her. Not a cleaning lady in a worn-out uniform, but a singer, an artist, someone who mattered. Then her phone rang. It was Margaret. "Alina, how are you feeling?" "Terrible," Alina admitted. "I am so scared I cannot think straight." "That is normal. Every performer feels this way before a big show. The important thing is to not let the fear control you." "What if I fail, Margaret? What if I get on that stage and forget everything? What if my voice disappears?" Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Now, I want you to imagine yourself standing on that stage. The lights are shining on you. The audience is waiting. You open your mouth and begin to sing. What do you feel?" Alina closed her eyes and tried to imagine it. At first, all she felt was terror. But then, slowly, something else began to emerge. A warmth in her chest, a tingling in her fingers, a sense of power and possibility. I feel like I am finally where I belong," she said quietly. "Hold on to that feeling," Margaret said. "That is the truth. Everything else is just fear trying to protect you. But you do not need protection, Alina. You need to fly." After they hung up, Alina felt a little better. She put the dress back in its bag and tried to get some sleep, but her mind would not stop racing. She tossed and turned for hours, watching the clock tick toward morning. Around midnight, she heard a soft knock on her door. "Mom, are you awake?" It was Sofia. Alina sat up and turned on the lamp. "Come in, sweetheart." Sofia padded into the room in her pajamas. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her mother with serious eyes. "I know something is going on," Sofia said. "You have been keeping a secret. Please tell me what it is. I am old enough to understand." Alina looked at her daughter, her smart, beautiful, determined daughter. Sofia was only 12, but she had an old soul. She noticed things. She understood things. And she deserved to know the truth. "You are right," Alina said slowly. "I have been keeping something from you. From you and your father. I was afraid to tell you because I thought you might think I was being silly." "I would never think that," Sofia said. "Tell me, Mom, please." So Alina told her everything. She told her about her grandmother Rosa and the songs they used to sing together. She told her about burying her dream when the family came to America. She told her about Professor Chen hearing her sing in the piano room. And she told her about the concert tomorrow night. Sofia listened with wide eyes. When Alina finished, the girl was quiet for a long moment. "Why did you never tell me any of this?" Sofia finally asked. "About Grandma Rosa, about the singing, about all of it." "Because it hurt too much to talk about," Alina said. "Because I did not want you to see me as a failure. I wanted you to see me as strong." "Mom," Sofia said, taking her mother's hands, "you are strong. You are the strongest person I know. You work so hard for our family. You never complain. You always put us first. That is strength." Tears began to run down Alina's face. "But I gave up on my dream. I was a coward." "No," Sofia said firmly. "You did what you had to do to survive. That is not being a coward. That is being brave. And now you have a chance to do something amazing, and you are scared. That is okay. Everyone gets scared. But you cannot let the fear win, Mom. You have to try." Alina pulled her daughter into a tight hug. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from you," Sofia said into her mother's shoulder. "I learned from watching you." They sat together for a while, holding each other. Then Sofia pulled back and looked at her mother with a smile. "Can I come to the concert tomorrow?" "Yes," Alina said. "I would like that. I would like that very much." "Can Dad come to?" Alina hesitated. She still had not told Carlos, but Sofia was right. He deserved to know. "Yes," she said. "He can come too, but I need to tell him first. I need to explain." Sofia nodded and kissed her mother's cheek. "He will understand. Mom, he loves you. He will be so proud of you." After Sofia went back to her room, Alina lay awake for another hour, thinking about what her daughter had said. Sofia was right. Carlos would understand. He had always supported her, even when things were hard. He deserved to know about this moment. Tomorrow she would tell him everything. Tomorrow she would invite him to watch her sing. Tomorrow she would stop hiding and finally let her family see who she really was. The fear was still there, curled up in her stomach like a cold snake. But something else was there too. Something stronger. It was hope. It was courage. It was the memory of her grandmother's voice, telling her that one day she would sing for the whole world. Tomorrow might not be the whole world, but it was a start. Alina finally closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. And for the first time in weeks, she did not have nightmares. She dreamed of a stage bathed in light, and a crowd rising to their feet, and the sound of applause that seemed to go on forever. When she woke up in the morning, the sun was shining through her window. She looked at the clock. It was 8 a.m. The concert was at 7 p.m. In 11 hours, everything would change. Alina got out of bed and walked to the window. She looked out at the city waking up below her. Somewhere out there, hundreds of people were going about their normal days, not knowing that tonight they would witness something extraordinary. Today is the day, she whispered to herself. Today is the day I stop being invisible. She took a deep breath and went to find Carlos. It was time to tell him the truth. Carlos was in the kitchen, drinking his morning coffee and reading the newspaper. He looked up when Alina walked in, and immediately he could tell something was different. Her face was pale but determined. Her eyes were shining with something he had not seen in years. "We need to talk," Alina said. Carlos put down his newspaper. "Okay, what is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Alina said. She sat down across from him and took a deep breath. "But there is something I have been keeping from you. Something important." And then she told him everything. Carlos listened in silence as Alina talked about her grandmother, about her dream of becoming a singer, about burying that dream when they came to America. He listened as she described meeting Professor Chen and agreeing to perform at the charity concert. He listened as she explained the secret rehearsals, the practicing, the fear and the hope all mixed together. When she finished, Carlos was quiet for a long moment. Alina watched his face, trying to read his expression. Was he angry that she had kept this from him? Was he disappointed? Was he going to tell her it was a stupid idea? Then Carlos stood up and walked around the table. He pulled Alina to her feet and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. "Alina," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "why did you not tell me sooner?" "I was scared," she whispered. "I thought you might think I was being foolish." Carlos pulled back and looked into her eyes. "Foolish? You are the most amazing woman I have ever known. You work harder than anyone I have ever met. You sacrifice everything for our family. And now you are telling me that you have been hiding this incredible talent all these years, that you have been carrying this dream inside you and never shared it with me." "I was ashamed," Alina said. "I felt like I had failed, like I had given up on something beautiful." Carlos shook his head. "You did not give up. You put it aside so you could take care of the people you love. That is not failing. That is being a hero. And now, you have a chance to show the world what you can do. How could I ever think that is foolish?" Alina started to cry. These were not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. All the fear and worry she had been carrying for weeks began to flow out of her. "You really think I can do this?" she asked. "I think you can do anything," Carlos said. "I have always believed that. And tonight, I am going to sit in that audience with Sofia, and I am going to watch my wife become a star." The hours before the concert passed in a blur. Alina took a long bath. She did her hair and her makeup, trying to remember the techniques Margaret had taught her. She put on the beautiful blue dress and the matching shoes. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Sofia came into the room and gasped. "Mom, you look beautiful. You look like a princess." "I do not feel like a princess," Alina said. "I feel like I am going to throw up." "That is just nerves," Sofia said. "Everyone gets nervous. But when you start singing, the nerves will go away. You will see." Carlos drove them to the conservatory. The building was lit up with lights, and well-dressed people were streaming through the front doors. Alina saw expensive cars and fancy clothes everywhere. These were wealthy people, important people, people who expected excellence. She felt her courage beginning to fade. "I cannot do this," she said. "Look at all these people. They are doctors and lawyers and business people. I am nobody. I am just a cleaning lady." Carlos took her hand. "You are my wife. You are Sofia's mother. You are Rosa's granddaughter. And tonight, you are a singer. That is who you are." Alina nodded slowly. She took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. Margaret was waiting for her backstage. The older woman looked elegant in a black dress with silver jewelry. When she saw Alina, her face broke into a wide smile. "You look stunning," Margaret said. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," Alina admitted. "Good. Terror means you are ready. Come with me. The concert starts in 30 minutes. You are the 5th performer. You will have time to watch the others and calm your nerves." Alina hugged Carlos and Sofia one more time, then followed Margaret through a maze of hallways to the backstage area. She could hear the murmur of the crowd on the other side of the curtain. Hundreds of voices, talking and laughing and waiting to be entertained. The concert began. Alina watched from the wings as the first performer took the stage, a young man with a violin who played a complicated piece by Bach. It was incredible. The audience applauded enthusiastically when he finished. The second performer was a pianist, then a string quartet, then a soprano who sang an aria from a famous opera. Each one was better than the last. Each one was trained and polished and professional. Alina felt smaller and smaller with each performance. These people had studied for years. They had degrees from the best schools. They had performed in concert halls around the world. What was she doing here? She was just a woman who had learned one song in 3 weeks. I cannot do this, she whispered to Margaret. I am going to fail. I am going to embarrass myself. Margaret grabbed her shoulders and looked into her eyes. Listen to me, Alina. You have something none of those performers have. You have a story. You have survived things they cannot imagine. You have a voice that comes from your soul, not from a textbook. When you walk onto that stage, you will be the most authentic person in this building. But what if I forget the words? What if my voice breaks? Then you keep going. You sing through the mistakes. You show them that you are human. That is what makes great art, Alina, not perfection. Humanity. The announcer's voice came through the speakers. And now, please welcome a very special addition to our program tonight. Performing O mio babbino caro from Puccini's opera Gianni Schicchi. Please welcome Alina Vasquez. There was a polite smattering of applause. Alina could hear confused murmurs rippling through the audience. They did not know who she was. They did not understand why she was on the program. Go, Margaret whispered. Show them. Alina walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding. She could barely see the audience, just a sea of dark shapes stretching back into the shadows. But she knew Carlos and Sofia were out there somewhere. She knew her grandmother's spirit was watching from somewhere above. She walked to the center of the stage. Her legs felt like they might collapse at any moment. Her heart was beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. A woman in the front row leaned toward her husband and whispered something. The husband smirked. Alina recognized them. They were regular visitors to the conservatory. She had cleaned their coffee cups and mopped around their expensive shoes. They thought she was a joke. They expected her to fail. The pianist played the opening notes. Alina opened her mouth for one terrifying moment. Nothing came out. Then she closed her eyes. She thought of her grandmother. She thought of Rosa standing on a stage in Mexico, singing her heart out. She thought of all the women in her family who had sung before her, all the way back through time, and she began to sing. The first note came out soft, almost like a whisper. Alina could feel the audience leaning forward, trying to hear. The woman in the front row who had smirked was now looking confused. The man beside her had stopped whispering. Alina took a breath and pushed harder. The second phrase came out stronger, clearer. Her voice began to fill the concert hall, reaching the back rows, climbing toward the ceiling. By the third phrase, something magical happened. Alina forgot where she was. She forgot about the audience, about the expensive clothes and the judgmental faces. She forgot about being a cleaning lady, about being invisible, about being nobody. She was no longer Alina Vasquez standing on a stage in Boston. She was a young woman begging her father for permission to marry the man she loved. She was desperate, heartbroken, willing to throw herself into a river if her wish was denied. The song was not just words anymore. It was her life, her story, her soul pouring out through her voice. Her voice rose and fell like ocean waves. It was powerful, but also tender. It was strong, but also vulnerable. It told a story of love and longing that everyone in the audience could understand, even if they did not speak a word of Italian. People in the audience began to feel something strange. The woman who had smirked was now sitting very still, her mouth slightly open. The man beside her had tears in his eyes. A young student in the back row was crying openly, not ashamed of his emotions. Alina did not notice any of this. Her eyes were closed, and she was somewhere else entirely. She was in her grandmother's kitchen, smelling fresh bread, and listening to Rosa sing. She was a little girl again, full of hope and dreams, before life had taught her to be afraid. The song built toward its climax. Alina's voice climbed higher and higher, each note more powerful than the last. The piano played underneath her, supporting her, lifting her up like wings. And then came the final phrase, the most beautiful phrase, the moment when the young woman in the song throws herself at her father's feet and begs for mercy. Alina held the note. She held it longer than she had ever held it in practice. The sound filled every corner of the concert hall. It vibrated in people's chests. It made their hearts ache with a sweetness they could not explain. Then, slowly, the note faded into silence. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The concert hall was completely still, as if time itself had stopped. Alina opened her eyes. She looked out at the audience, suddenly afraid. Had she made a terrible mistake? Had she embarrassed herself? Why was everyone so quiet? Then she saw something extraordinary. The woman in the front row, the one who had smirked, was crying. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. She looked at Alina with an expression of pure wonder, as if she was seeing an angel. The man beside her began to clap, slowly at first, just his 2 hands coming together in the silence. Then another person joined in, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire audience was on their feet. They were applauding, cheering, shouting. The sound was like thunder rolling through the hall. People were wiping tears from their eyes. Some were hugging each other. A famous music critic in the middle row was furiously writing notes in a small notebook. Alina stood on the stage. frozen with shock. She had expected polite applause at best, maybe some scattered criticism at worst. She had never imagined this. This was a standing ovation. This was the kind of response that famous singers dreamed about. She looked toward the wings of the stage and saw Margaret. The old professor was crying harder than anyone else in the room. She was clapping and nodding and mouthing words that Alina could not hear over the thunder of applause. Alina looked out into the audience and found Carlos and Sofia. They were standing in the third row, holding each other, crying and laughing at the same time. Carlos was shouting something, "That is my wife. That is my wife." But his voice was lost in the noise. Sofia held up her phone. She had been recording the entire performance. Later, Alina would learn that Sofia had posted the video online within minutes, sharing it with her friends and family. But in that moment, all Alina saw was her daughter's face, glowing with pride and love. The applause went on for what felt like forever. Alina did not know what to do. She had never experienced anything like this. She tried to bow, almost tripping on her dress. She smiled and wiped tears from her own eyes. She waved at the audience, feeling silly and wonderful at the same time. Finally, she walked off the stage. Margaret was waiting for her. The old woman grabbed her in a fierce hug and held on tight. "I knew it," Margaret whispered. "I knew from the first moment I heard you. You are extraordinary, Alina. You are a star." "I cannot believe what just happened," Alina said. "Is this real? Am I dreaming?" "It is real," Margaret laughed. "It is very, very real, and this is just the beginning." Before Alina could respond, people began streaming backstage. First came other performers from the concert, wanting to congratulate her. Then came members of the audience, wealthy donors and board members who had never given Alina a second glance when she was mopping floors. A tall man in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. Alina recognized him as David Hart, one of the richest men in Boston. He was a major donor to the conservatory. He had walked past her 100 times without ever noticing she existed. "That was incredible," he said, taking Alina's hand. "Absolutely incredible. Where have you been hiding? Why have I never heard of you?" Alina did not know what to say. She looked at Margaret for help. "Alina has been developing her talent privately," Margaret said smoothly. "This was her first public performance. I think you can see why I wanted to share her with the world." David Hart nodded enthusiastically. "I want to help. Whatever you need. Voice lessons, connections, opportunities. I want to be part of your journey. The world needs to hear this voice." More people came. Music producers, record label executives, journalists with notepads and cameras. Everyone wanted a piece of Alina Vasquez, the cleaning lady who had just stunned the most sophisticated audience in Boston. Carlos and Sofia finally made it through the crowd. Alina fell into her husband's arms, sobbing with joy and relief. "I am so proud of you," Carlos whispered. "So proud." Sofia squeezed in between them. "Mom, the video already has 50,000 views. People are sharing it everywhere. Everyone wants to know who you are." Alina pulled back and looked at her daughter. 50,000 views. In 15 minutes. Yes, you are going viral, Mom. By tomorrow, the whole world is going to know your name. Alina looked around at all the faces surrounding her, the professors, the donors, the journalists, her family. 3 weeks ago, she had been invisible. She had been nobody. She had been a woman who cleaned toilets and mopped floors and expected nothing more from life. Now, everything had changed. She thought of her grandmother Rosa, standing on that stage in Mexico so many years ago. Rosa had told her that one day, she would sing for the whole world. Tonight, that prophecy had come true. That night, Alina could not sleep. Her mind was racing with everything that had happened. The performance, the applause, the tears, the endless stream of people wanting to meet her. It all felt like a dream, something that had happened to someone else. She lay in bed next to Carlos, staring at the ceiling. Beside her, Carlos was snoring softly, exhausted from all the excitement. But Alina was wide awake, replaying every moment in her head. Had she really done it? Had she really stood on that stage and sung in front of hundreds of people? Had the audience really given her a standing ovation? It seemed impossible. She reached for her phone on the nightstand. Sophie had shown her how to check the video before they went to bed, but Alina had been too overwhelmed to look. Now, in the quiet darkness, she opened the app and searched for her name. What she saw made her gasp. The video had been viewed 2 million times. 2 million people had watched her sing in the last 6 hours. The comments were endless, thousands and thousands of messages from strangers all over the world. "This is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. Who is this woman? She needs a record deal immediately. I am crying. I cannot stop crying. Her voice is like an angel. I got chills. This is what music is supposed to sound like." Alina scrolled through the comments, her heart pounding. People were sharing the video on every platform. News websites had picked up the story. Headlines were appearing everywhere. Cleaning lady stuns elite audience with opera performance. Undiscovered talent goes viral after charity concert. Watch the performance. Everyone is talking about. Alina put down her phone and stared at the wall. She was famous. Overnight, without any warning, she had become famous. The whole world was watching her video and falling in love with her voice. She did not know how to feel. Part of her was thrilled, excited, bursting with joy. But another part was terrified. What did this mean for her life? What would happen next? She was still just a cleaning lady with a small apartment and a modest income. She did not know anything about the music industry or record deals or press interviews. The next morning, Alina woke up to the sound of her phone ringing non-stop. Carlos handed her a cup of coffee and looked at her with wide eyes. "Your phone has been ringing for an hour," he said. "I did not want to wake you, but it will not stop." Alina looked at the screen. She had 23 missed calls from numbers she did not recognize. She had hundreds of text messages, dozens of emails, and countless notifications from social media. "What is happening?" she whispered. "The world wants to talk to you," Carlos said simply. "You are famous now, Alina. Everything is different." The first call she answered was from Margaret. The old professor sounded excited and exhausted at the same time. "Alina, you need to get to the conservatory as soon as possible. There are journalists here, music producers. Everyone wants to meet you. I have been holding them off, but they are getting impatient." "I do not know what to do," Alina said. "I am not prepared for this." "Nobody is ever prepared for this," Margaret said. "But you will figure it out. You are stronger than you think. Now get dressed and come here. Your new life is waiting for you." Alina got dressed in a daze. She put on simple clothes, jeans, and a nice shirt because she did not know what else to wear. Sophia helped her fix her hair and put on some light makeup. "You look great, Mom," Sophia said. "Like a star." "I do not feel like a star," Alina said. "I feel like I am still dreaming." Carlos drove her to the conservatory. When they arrived, there was a crowd of people outside. Journalists with cameras, photographers shouting questions, curious passers-by trying to catch a glimpse of the woman who had gone viral overnight. Alina's heart began to race. She wanted to turn around and go home. She wanted to hide in her apartment and pretend none of this was happening. But Carlos took her hand and squeezed it tight. "You can do this," he said. "I believe in you." Alina took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. Immediately, cameras started flashing. People started shouting her name. "Alina, over here. Alina, how do you feel about going viral? Alina, what is next for you?" Margaret appeared from nowhere and took Alina by the arm. She led her through the crowd and into the conservatory, where it was quieter but still overwhelming. A dozen people in expensive suits were waiting in the lobby, all of them staring at Alina like she was a precious gem they wanted to buy. Over the next few hours, Alina met with music producers from 3 different record labels. They all wanted to sign her. They talked about albums and tours and television appearances. They threw numbers at her, amounts of money that made her head spin. She met with journalists who asked about her life story. She told them about Mexico, about her grandmother, about coming to America and working as a cleaning lady. She told them about the night Margaret heard her singing and changed her life. The journalists scribbled everything down. They took photographs of Alina in front of the piano, in front of the stage, in the hallway where she used to mop floors. They called it the most inspiring story they had ever heard. By the end of the day, Alina had received 3 record deal offers. She had agreed to appear on 2 television shows. She had given interviews to newspapers and magazines from around the world. But the moment that meant the most came late in the afternoon. When everyone had finally left, Alina was sitting alone in the concert hall, looking at the empty stage where she had performed just 12 hours ago. Margaret came and sat beside her. "How are you feeling?" the old professor asked. Alina thought for a moment. "I feel like I have been dreaming for 34 years, and I just woke up." Margaret smiled. "That is a good way to put it. What are you going to do now?" "I do not know," Alina admitted. "Everyone wants something from me. Record labels, journalists, television shows. I do not know who to trust. I do not know how to navigate this world." "You do not have to figure it out alone," Margaret said. "I will help you, and more importantly, you have your family. Carlos, Sophia, they will keep you grounded. They will remind you of who you really are when all of this craziness tries to change you." Alina nodded. She thought about Sophia's proud smile, about Carlos shouting in the audience. She thought about her grandmother Rosa, looking down from heaven with tears of joy. "I have one question," Alina said. "All those years I spent cleaning this building, did you ever notice me? Before that night in the piano room?" Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she shook her head sadly. "No," she admitted. "I am ashamed to say it, but no. I walked past you 100 times and never saw you. You were invisible to me." "That is okay," Alina said. "I was invisible to myself too. I had forgotten who I was. I had forgotten what I was capable of. It took someone like you to remind me." Margaret took Alina's hand. "That is what I hope this story teaches people. That everyone has something precious inside them. That the person mopping the floor might have a voice like an angel. That nobody is truly invisible, no matter how the world treats them." Alina squeezed Margaret's hand. Outside, she could hear the distant sounds of journalists still lingering, waiting for another chance to talk to her. Tomorrow there would be more interviews, more meetings, more decisions to make, but for now, in this quiet moment, Alina just sat and breathed. She looked at the empty stage and remembered the feeling of the music flowing through her. Her life would never be the same. She did not know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in 15 years, she was excited to find out. 1 year later, Alina stood backstage at Carnegie Hall in New York City. She was wearing a beautiful red dress, the same color her grandmother Rosa used to wear. Her hair was styled elegantly, and she wore the diamond earrings that Carlos had given her for their anniversary. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of the audience. 2,000 people had come to hear her sing tonight. The tickets had sold out in 20 minutes. People had flown in from all over the world just to be here 1 year. It had only been 1 year since that night at the Hartwell Conservatory. But in that year, everything had changed. Alina thought back over all that had happened. The record deal she had signed with a major label. The album she had recorded, a mix of opera classics and traditional Mexican songs that her grandmother had taught her. The album had debuted at #1 and stayed there for 6 weeks. She thought about the television appearances, the magazine covers, the interviews. She had been on morning shows and late-night shows. She had told her story 1,000 times, and each time, people cried. They said she gave them hope. They said she reminded them that it was never too late to follow their dreams. She thought about the awards, the Grammy nomination that had shocked the entire music industry. The young cleaning lady from Boston, nominated alongside the greatest singers in the world. She had not won, but that did not matter. Just being nominated was a miracle. Most importantly, she thought about her family, about Carlos, who had stood by her through all the craziness. He had quit his construction job to travel with her, helping manage her schedule and keep her grounded. He was her rock, her anchor, her home. And Sofia, her beautiful daughter, was now 13 years old. She had started taking voice lessons of her own, inspired by her mother's example. She had talent too, not as powerful as Elena's, but real and beautiful. Maybe one day Sofia would stand on this same stage. Maybe the gift that Rosa had passed down would continue through another generation. Alina heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Margaret walking toward her, looking elegant in a silver gown. Nervous? Margaret asked. Alina laughed. Always. I do not think that ever goes away. It should not go away, Margaret said. The day you stop being nervous is the day you stop caring, and you should never stop caring about the music. They stood together in silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the audience settling into their seats. Then Alina spoke. Do you remember what you told me that first night? You said you had been waiting your whole career to find someone like me, to give someone the chance you were given. I remember, Margaret said. I have been thinking about that a lot, Alina continued, about how one person can change another person's life. You changed mine. My grandmother changed yours, and now I want to do the same for someone else. Margaret smiled. What do you have in mind? I want to start a foundation, Alina said. A scholarship program for underprivileged musicians. For people like me, people who have talent but no opportunity. I want to find them in unexpected places. In cleaning crews and factory floors and immigrant neighborhoods. I want to show them that their dreams are not impossible. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. That is a wonderful idea. Alina. Rosa would be so proud of you. I hope so, Alina said quietly. I hope she knows that I finally became what she always believed I could be. A stage manager appeared in the doorway. 5 minutes, Ms. Vasquez. Alina nodded. She took a deep breath and looked at Margaret. Thank you, she said, for everything. For believing in me when I did not believe in myself. For seeing something in me that I had forgotten was there. Margaret hugged her tightly. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. Now go out there and show them why they came. Alina walked toward the stage. She could see Carlos and Sofia in the front row, beaming with pride. She could see famous musicians and critics scattered throughout the audience. She could see ordinary people who had saved their money for months just to hear her sing. And somewhere in a place beyond time and space, she could feel her grandmother watching. Rosa was there. In the music, in the lights, in the beating of Elena's heart. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Grammy-nominated soprano Alina Vasquez. The applause began, a wave of sound that washed over Alina like a warm ocean. She walked onto the stage, her red dress sparkling under the lights. She looked out at the sea of faces and felt no fear, only gratitude, only joy. She thought about the woman she used to be, the cleaning lady who pushed a cart through empty hallways, the invisible woman who had given up on her dreams. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone from a different life, but she was not gone. She was still there, inside Alina, reminding her of where she came from, reminding her to stay humble, reminding her that she was no better than the janitors and housekeepers and workers who would clean this hall after the concert ended. The difference was that, now Alina saw them, she noticed them, she remembered what it felt like to be invisible, and she made sure to smile at every cleaning worker she passed, to learn their names, to treat them like the human beings they were. The pianist began to play. It was the same song she had sung at the conservatory 1 year ago, O Mio Babino Caro, the song that had changed everything. Alina opened her mouth and began to sing. Her voice filled Carnegie Hall, rising to the magnificent ceiling, echoing off the walls, touching every heart in the audience. It was the same voice that had moved Professor Chen to tears in an empty piano room, the same voice that had stunned a skeptical audience at a charity concert, the same voice that had been silenced for 15 years before finding the courage to sing again. That she sang. Alina thought about all the other invisible people in the world, the cleaners and waiters and factory workers, The immigrants and dreamers and believers, the people who carried precious gifts inside them that the world had never seen. She hoped they were watching tonight. She hoped her story would give them courage. She hoped they would look at her, a cleaning lady who had become an opera star, and think, if she can do it, maybe I can too. The song came to an end. Alina held the final note, pouring all of her love and gratitude into it. When she finally let it go, the silence lasted only a moment. Then came the standing ovation. 2,000 people rising to their feet. 2,000 voices shouting and cheering. 2,000 pairs of hands clapping until they hurt. Elena looked at Carlos and Sofia in the front row. They were crying and laughing, just like that first night at the conservatory. Some things never changed, no matter how famous you became. She looked at Margaret, who was clapping harder than anyone. The woman who had seen a diamond in a cleaning lady and polished it until it shone. And she looked up at the ceiling of Carnegie Hall, imagining she could see through it to the stars beyond, to the place where her grandmother Rosa was watching, smiling, finally at peace. I did it, Abuela, Alina whispered, too soft for anyone to hear. I sang for the whole world, just like you said I would. The applause continued. The flowers came. The photographers captured the moment. The journalists prepared their stories. But for Alina, standing in the middle of that beautiful stage, there was only one thought in her mind. She was no longer invisible, and she never would be again. The end.